They say you don't choose the life you're born into, but you sure as hell can fight to change it. I was born in Hong Kong in 1954, during a time when the city was bursting at the seams with people fleeing war and poverty. My parents, Charles and Lily Chan, had nothing when they arrived. My dad worked as a cook for the French embassy, and my mom cleaned houses to keep us afloat. When I came along, they named me Chan Kong Sang, which literally means born in Hong Kong. I guess I was their proof that life, no matter how hard, goes on. From the time I could walk, I couldn't stop moving. I earned the nickname Pow Pow, or Cannonball, because I'd roll around, crash into walls, tumble down stairs. Basically, I was a walking bruise with too much energy and not enough sense. School was a nightmare. I wasn't exactly a straight-A student. Truth be told, I flunked out of first grade. My parents were at their wits' end, so when I was 7, they made a decision that changed everything. They enrolled me in the China Drama Academy, a Peking opera school run by Master Yu Jimuan. If you've never heard of the China Drama Academy, let me tell you, it wasn't a school. It was more like a martial arts boot camp crossed with Broadway and a military prison. We trained from 5 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week. We slept on wooden boards, shared food scraps, and if we messed up, we got caned. There were no excuses, no breaks. You learned discipline, or you broke. But in that crucible, something inside me hardened and sharpened. My body learned to bend like bamboo. I could balance on a single fingertip. I could kick, flip, tumble, and sing, all with a smile on my face. Pain became a companion, and perfection, an obsession. I wasn't alone. My closest friends were Sammo Hung and Yuan Biao, 2 guys who'd later become legends in their own right. We formed a brotherhood of sweat and bruises, dreaming of escape and stardom. By the time I was a teenager, I was performing with the 7 Little Fortunes, a touring group made up of the Academy's best students. We were acrobats, comedians, martial artists, miniature stuntmen with painted faces and battered bodies. My parents eventually moved to Australia for work, but I stayed behind. I was 16, and I knew my only path forward was through film. I started as a stuntman, getting tossed around in movies starring Bruce Lee. I was in Fist of Fury and Enter the Dragon. If you pause just right, you can see me getting kicked across a room by Bruce himself. I didn't mind being invisible back then. I just wanted to be part of the magic, even if it meant falling down a flight of stairs for the 50th time. But here's the thing, I wasn't Bruce Lee. I didn't have his deadly stare or calm, coiled intensity. When I tried to act like him in my first few leading roles, I flopped hard. Nobody wanted to knock off Bruce. And that's when it hit me. What if I stopped trying to be him and just became myself? So I leaned into my awkwardness. I embraced the chaos, the falls, the mishaps. I made fights funny, messy, unpredictable. In Snake in the Eagle's Shadow and Drunken Master, I did my own stunts, threw in wild expressions, played a cocky underdog who got beaten up just as often as he won. Audiences loved it. For the first time, I wasn't copying anyone. I was Jackie. Things snowballed fast. Project A, Wheels on Meals, Police Story. I was doing things no one else dared to try. Jumping off rooftops, sliding down skyscrapers, crashing through real glass windows. I broke bones. My nose more times than I can count. My skull once. I still have a hole in the back of my head. But I wouldn't use stunt doubles. Not because I thought I was invincible, but because I believed in honesty. If I was going to make people laugh and gasp, I wanted to earn it. Frame by frame, bruise by bruise. Hong Kong loved me, but America? That took longer. Breaking into Hollywood felt like trying to kick down a steel door with bare feet. I'd already become a household name in Asia, pulling off stunts that left even my stunt team shaking their heads. But in America, I was just another kung fu guy. Studios saw me as a curiosity, not a leading man. They didn't get the blend of comedy and chaos I was bringing to action. Worse, they didn't trust one could carry a film. I remember the first time they dubbed my voice. I sounded like a bad Saturday morning cartoon. It was humiliating. I kept trying. In the 80s and early 90s, I took small roles, some forgettable, some downright awful. One of them was The Protector. I hated how they handled my fight scenes. It was all stiff, no rhythm, no soul. I clashed with the director, and the film bombed. I returned to Hong Kong thinking maybe America just wasn't ready for someone like me. But I didn't give up. I doubled down on what I knew. Back home, I kept pushing boundaries. Armor of God, Miracles, Super Cop. Each film was a new challenge, a new risk. I nearly died shooting Armor of God, slipped during a tree jump and cracked my skull open. I lost some hearing in one ear. They had to put a plastic plug in my head to stop the bleeding. I was back on set weeks later. That's the thing about me. I don't stop. Not for pain, not for fear. Because every time I flew through a window or leapt off a bus, I felt alive. I felt connected to every kid watching, every guy who never thought someone with an accent, with my face, could be the hero. Then in 1995, something changed. I filmed Rumble in the Bronx in Canada, pretending it was New York. We didn't have much budget, but we had heart. I broke my ankle doing a rooftop jump. There's footage of me sitting in a cast, then stuffing the cast into a sock and sneaker just to keep filming. The movie blew up. Suddenly, American audiences were asking, who's this guy who's actually doing all his own stunts? Rush Hour came next. That changed everything. I'll admit, I didn't know what to make of Chris Tucker at first. He talked fast, joked faster, and had the energy of a guy who drank 5 Red Bulls before breakfast. But the chemistry? Instant. He played the smooth-talking cop, I was the quiet kung fu master, and together we lit up the screen. The movie was a smash. For the first time, I wasn't being dubbed. People heard my real voice, saw my real timing, my real heart. Rush Hour opened 1,000 doors. The sequel made even more money. Then came Shanghai Noon with Owen Wilson. I loved that film, Kung Fu and Cowboys. What's not to like? And finally, I wasn't the sidekick anymore. I was the star. But success in Hollywood didn't mean I stopped working in Asia. I flew back and forth, often filming 2 or 3 movies a year. I built JC Group, my own production company. Started directing more. I kept making movies like Who Am I?, where I slid down the side of a skyscraper with nothing but sneakers and faith. My body paid the price. Every joint ached. I had metal pins in my fingers, screws in my back. Some nights I couldn't sleep from the pain. But every time I stood on a set, I remembered that boy from the China Drama Academy, barefoot and bruised, who just wanted to make people smile. And now, finally, they were smiling everywhere. Fame is a strange thing. One moment you're fighting to get noticed, the next, you can't walk through an airport without being mobbed. After Rush Hour 2, my face was everywhere, billboards in Times Square, posters in Paris, bootleg DVDs in back alleys from Bangkok to Buenos Aires. I was that kung fu guy who talks funny and jumps off buildings. And sure, I laughed with the world, but deep down, I was always thinking, is this enough? Is this really me? The truth is, I've never been just an actor or a stuntman. I've always been something in between, part clown, part fighter, part dreamer. And I've always wrestled with the balance. Hollywood wanted me in slick suits and fast cuts. Hong Kong expected raw stunts and wild fight choreography. Somewhere in the middle, I had to keep finding myself. I tried to bring more heart into my work. With the tuxedo and the medallion, I experimented. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I wasn't afraid to fail. Failure teaches you where the edge is and how far you can lean before you fall. And I fell. A lot. Physically, emotionally, creatively. There were days I felt like a relic. CGI was taking over action films. Studios didn't want bruises anymore. They wanted pixels. Insurance companies started refusing to cover me. Too risky, they said. They didn't understand that the risk was the point. Real pain, real fear, it gives a scene weight. It's the difference between a kick that lands and a kick you feel in your soul. Meanwhile, back in Asia, I started getting more involved behind the camera. I mentored young actors, trained new stunt teams. I opened a stuntman training center because I knew how hard it was to break into this world without connections. I also launched my charity, the Jackie Chan Charitable Foundation. I've always believed that if life gives you more than you need, you don't hoard it, you give it back. But fame is shadows too. People wrote stories. Some true, some not. They criticized me for not being political enough, or for being too close to certain governments. I tried to stay out of politics. My life was already complicated enough. What they didn't see were the hospital nights, the quiet grief, the family moments I missed because I was halfway across the world dangling off a helicopter. I missed a lot, especially with my son, JC. I wasn't the best father. That's a hard thing to admit. I pushed him hard, expected him to walk in my shoes when I barely understood how I'd survived wearing them. I gave him money, but not enough time. I was a provider, but not always present. That guilt sits in my chest like a stone. I've tried to be better in recent years. I hope he knows I'm proud of him, even when the world wasn't. Then came the Karate Kid reboot. Playing Mr. Han, an old, broken janitor with sorrow in his eyes, was different. I wasn't leaping off buses. I was crying on screen, showing the world a side of me most had never seen. When that scene came where Mr. Han mourns his family, the tears were real. Not just acting. That was Jackie, the son, the father, the man who'd given so much to the world but hadn't always known how to keep the most important things close. For the first time, people stopped seeing me as just a stunt guy. They saw me as an actor. That meant more than box office numbers ever could. Getting older in this industry feels like being the last man standing after a battle. Your friends are gone, your body's scarred, the spotlight moves on. But you're still here, still breathing, still aching to create. After the Karate Kid, a shift happened, not just in my career, but in me. I started thinking about legacy, not stunts. I wasn't interested in being the fastest or funniest anymore. I wanted to tell stories that meant something. Stories about loyalty, redemption, love, sacrifice. And I wanted to do it while I still could. But that didn't mean I was done jumping off buildings. In 2012, I made Chinese Zodiac, and I told the press it would be my last big action film. I meant it, kind of. My bones screamed in protest with every take. We shot scenes where I rolled down a mountainside in a giant rollerblade suit, and I thought, why the hell am I still doing this? But I knew why. Because every time the camera rolled, I became that cannonball kid again, the one who believed anything was possible if you were crazy enough to try. I won an honorary Oscar in 2016. Standing on that stage, holding that little gold statue, I remembered being a broke teenager sleeping on rooftops, dreaming in Cantonese. I looked out at the crowd, Tom Hanks, Chris Tucker, Michelle Yeoh, Sylvester Stallone, and felt like I finally belonged. After over 200 movies, the world was saying, "We see you, Jackie. We really see you." But my greatest satisfaction didn't come from that Oscar. It came from what I saw growing around me. New generations of filmmakers who grew up watching my movies, stunt performers who studied my fight scenes frame by frame, kids in every corner of the world who found joy in my chaos. It's surreal, knowing that somewhere out there, a young boy in India or Brazil might be flipping over a fence right now, shouting Jackie Chan as he lands. I also lean more into humanitarian work. Earthquakes, floods, school rebuilds. I couldn't save everyone, but I could help someone. And that mattered. I once said I wanted to be remembered more as a philanthropist than a kung fu star. Maybe that's still a stretch, but I keep trying. That said, I also learned to enjoy life more, to laugh off the little things, to take slower walks. I reconnected with old friends, Samo, Ewan, the guys who knew me before the fame, before the pain. We'd sit around and tell stories, sometimes forgetting who got hurt in which movie because there were just so many injuries to choose from. We laughed about broken ribs like they were old love letters. I kept acting, too. The Foreigner was one of those rare chances to go deep into drama. No flips, no laughs, just a man broken by grief, hunting for justice. Audiences were shocked. Jackie Chan can act, they said. I smiled. I always could, I whispered. But you know what the hardest part has been? Slowing down. Not because of age, but because I'm not sure how to live without the chaos. Without the bruises, the rehearsals, the crew's laughter, the hush before a big take. That silence before the action claps. That's my heartbeat. That's my church. These days, people often ask me, Jackie, what's next? The truth is, I don't know. And that's okay. I still wake up early. My body doesn't always cooperate. My knees groan, my shoulders click, my back stiffens like old bamboo, but I keep moving. I stretch, I train a little, I visit the office, I read scripts. I still get excited when I see a good story, especially if it has heart. Maybe I'll direct again. Maybe I'll surprise everyone with a quiet little indie film. Or maybe I'll just sit in the back of the theater, watching the next generation leap into the air the way I once did, and I'll smile. I don't need the spotlight anymore. I've had my time in it. I've danced with it, bled under it, nearly died for it. Now, I'm more interested in what it shines on next. Looking back, I have no regrets, only lessons. I've lived 1,000 lives on screen. I've been a knight, a chef, a cop, a thief, a mentor, a fool, a hero. Off-screen, I've made mistakes. I've hurt people. I've learned humility. I've grown. Fame is fleeting. Box office records fade. But laughter, that stays. A well-timed fall. A goofy grin after getting punched. A crazy leap from one rooftop to another. If I've brought a little more laughter into this world, then maybe I've done something right. I still think about my parents. My mom, strong but gentle. My dad, always quiet but proud. I wonder what they'd say now, seeing what their pow-pow became. I hope they'd smile. I hope they know I didn't forget where I came from. And sometimes, when I'm alone, I think of that little boy who once sat cross-legged in a dusty rehearsal hall, his cheeks bruised, his palms calloused, staring up at the ceiling, imagining a world where he could fly. He didn't have much, but he had heart. That boy is still here. He's older now, wiser, a little slower, but still dreaming. So if you ever see me in a park, maybe with a cane in one hand and a script in the other, don't be surprised if I suddenly try a cartwheel or fall flat on my back. Just laugh with me. Because as long as I can move, I'll keep moving. As long as there's a camera rolling, I'll keep telling stories. And as long as you're still watching, I'll keep being Jackie. Thank you for listening. Thank you for everything. Jackie Chan.